Hello, hello, and welcome to yet another episode of Gambit Magazine's RuPaul's Drag Race podcast. We are the Shady Ladies, shadier than ever as time goes on. Perhaps it's age, perhaps it's this gloomy weather. Oh, who knows? But all I know is that my week is not complete until I've talked to all you people whose faces I will not see about this wondrous, wondrous show. What do you say, Margot?
I say hello out there in Shady Lady Land.
Yes, you should all have a parasol with you every day.
Oh, I'm fanning myself right now.
I know, ever since your dog farted.
Ugh, God, I'm sorry. I don't know what to say.
Well, you said sorry. That's enough. We're good. We're good.
So?
Oh, well, this was an interesting week. So many weird, symmetrical things happened, Like, it was kind of tricky because the main challenge was really another harkening back to genderfuck drag. Seems to be like a recurring theme this season to like really incorporate the male persona with the female impression, because the runway challenge and the main challenge were both in that same vein. Like you had to do that in the dance, which itself was a mashup of jarring styles. I think the outcome, the winners, I was happy about. I was happy about who won. I was very unhappy about the person that went home. We kind of guessed it. That's what happens. No secret. The person who gets to come back into the competition went home. Only this time, the change-up was that they lasted more than just that episode where they came back. Because everyone else who came back goes home in the episode they came back in. But this time, that was the whole episode was coming back on. Then the whole next episode, she actually made it through that. But then, I guess this is the furthest any of these comeback queens have ever made it after coming back. But I still felt that it was not totally fair the way it worked out to send her home. So my heart was broken again. I don't know how much more my heart can take. It's like busted so much this season already. And that just kind of it was like letting the air out of the balloon. It was like...
Well, now that you've given the book jacket summary or the DVR summary of what the Prancing Queens episode was more or less about, well, let's just talk about my favorite part that I could talk about all day long is the mini challenge. First of all, I love the
fake housewives of RuPaul's Drag Race.
So good.
When is that going to be a show?
I hope really soon now. What else are they going to do?
A scripted TV show like that is
gold. I don't know if you ever watched the Real Hot Housewives of West Palm Beach, Florida, or whatever.
The Hot Wives of Atlanta, whatever. I've seen it. Yes,
the Hulu one with Casey Wilson,
which is hilarious.
I feel like these are like companion pieces, and I would love to see like a crossover episode or something with the fake, fake Real Housewives and these Hot Housewives. But anyway, I just really enjoy the mini challenges, especially as the maxi challenges tend to kind of. I feel like you are looking for the red flags by the time you get to the maxi challenge. So the mini challenge is like the pure moment of real joy that you get to like watch everybody actually have a good time. And I think they usually catch the queens somewhat unaware. And so kind of seeing like their first jerk or knee-jerk responses to things can kind of always be like the best response. But it just so happened to mash up like one of my favorite reality shows that like it is absolutely about nothing and is awful for you to watch. Real Housewives of any fucking city. Enter a city here. That show plus drag queens using tape to uglify themselves, which I love because especially knowing Katya and Trixie, and Pearl even like has done a couple like funny plastic surgery things in the past, even just in the season. So I was really excited and just already by the premise of this mini challenge. So the mini challenges are already my favorite part of the show, but this is, tied with Lip Sync for Your Life, but then that always ends with someone going home, so that definitely is second.
It's always bittersweet, but you get to see like more of the, I feel like you really get to see more of the creativity of all of them like at their best, because so many of them, the problem when you're in a competition like that is that you have no one else really to hang out with or talk with. You have no other experiences, so you are left in your head for a lot of the time to overthink things. So
or just talk about the same thing over and over and over, analyze things and like dissect like every single sentence that everyone says to you. Like Katya does in Untucked. She's like, Rachel Harris said I look like a hot douche. And I was like, that's actually a compliment. And I was really glad that Pearl tried to talk her off that ledge. But I mean, if her talk with Ginger afterwards was any indication, she still didn't buy that hot douche was a compliment.
Yeah, I guess I said it like a while ago too. You really got sort of a low self-esteem vibe from Katya, which is so crazy because in drag, Katya is like beautiful, hilarious. Like she's got the fashion and the comedy and the performance skills, like to really be able to do anything really well. And she's always sort of doubting herself. Even if like her performance is really great, she's still like, oh, I'm gonna. But they all said that in Untucked though.
It was really
like,
interesting.
I'm gonna be in the bottom. I know it's gonna be me.
Except for Trixie, which I thought was
Trixie
really
was
funny.
the only one who was like, I think I'm gonna win the challenge.
And it sort of made me laugh, and I felt bad for laughing.
I felt bad for
it. Was just like,
oh my god, like words out of my head because I seriously, I'm laughing. It's like, oh my god, like you are so like you don't have a clue that you're going home, like. And it was kind of, like you said, it was kind of set up. You kind of got that feeling where she was like, because she was more overly concerned about, like, you know, not wanting to be upstaged. And, like, I've got to really push really hard and go all out. And I'm like, well, if you have to
especially
say
coming
that,
off, yeah, exactly. But especially coming off of that John Waters challenge from the week before and being told straight up by a judge that you were outshined by Ginger and that you needed to step it up. Of course, it's going to be your main MO, but yeah, saying it out loud in that sort of desperate tone of voice.
And the sad thing was that she did outshine Ginger, and she still went home.
Yeah, I know.
But
I guess you could also argue, I mean, devil's advocate, but you could argue that she didn't outshine Ginger enough or whatever, or hold the team together. I'm sure there are many arguments.
She did try to carry Ginger, literally.
She literally carried Ginger, which is no small task. Pun intended. But
and it was just...
I think that even from the very beginning in like the mini challenge that Trixie had like the weakest burn for being a comedy queen, and especially seeing her just trade barbs like in the workshop and how funny those jokes and comments are. I was really surprised to hear her give like kind of like a typical line that I've honestly heard from a different housewife.
Yeah, what
I swear to God,
this week?
How do I sleep? Ask your husbands. Or how do I sleep at night or some shit like that.
She was so good when the library was open. Pardon me. When the library was open, she was so funny. I was just like,
yeah, she definitely won that challenge hands down.
You could that's Trixie. Like you saw her like.
But
totally
I think so. If you compare those 2 weeks, it was kind of like a steep downshift. Like maybe the defeatist attitude had already set in before Ginger and her got paired up together for the Maxi challenge. Maybe she was already there and Ginger just kind of like fed into it anyway and just made it worse.
But she was like, oh, I can't dance. I'm like, remember like the second episode of the season when you won the Glamazonian Airways challenge and there was choreography and dancing in there, and you were even saying like, you know, like this was like one of my biggest fears and I conquered it and I like succeeded.
Yeah.
I'm like, how did you go from that to being like, oh my god, I can't dance? And I'm just like, this is like I can't do this. Like she was so like I can't do this. She had that inner monologue or the inner dialogue.
That it almost felt like staged. Like she just came off a win. I don't understand.
It was really odd to me that she felt that way. Everyone's like, and everybody else was confused too. They're like, where is that coming from? Like she's amazing. Like Violet was just like, it pisses me off. Like it wasn't just like I'm sad for you. I'm like, no, I'm pissed off because you have everything that you need to. You are great. You are brilliant. You are hilarious. You are a great performer. But it's you talking yourself out of believing that in this situation. Like, you really you could have won this, probably, too. You probably could have. All you needed was the inner dialogue to say that you can do it. And she just instantly shut down, it felt like, in this episode. And she's had a couple moments like that in this season where she's, like, at the top, and then she just kind of, like, shuts down.
But I feel like she always seeks out help when that starts to happen, and it felt like she deliberately didn't do that this time.
And it's so odd also because Trixie's like, well, I can dance, I can sew, and she did all those things well, and she's the one who got eliminated because really, like I said, it's like the Vegas odds have got to be like against anyone even trying to bet on the big girl winning a lip sync for your life because you all know that they're going to win. Darian Lake. You could not beat Darian Lake at a lip sync. She didn't get eliminated from season 6 at a lip sync, it was like at the end when they were nearing the final 4 down to the final 3, you know, it was like more like you were so bad at those things. Which was like, I think that confused me this week too, because usually you get that kind of like, oh, when you even it out, like someone was really good in this and kind of weaker in this. But it's like, well, Trixie was good in the dancing. Trixie's runway look I thought was hilarious and is actually like I said, like the most
I thought Kennedy
shocking
was spot
boy
on
girl.
in Untucked when she's like, "You're giving me Brokeback Mountain realness right now,"
which
is
so
totally
good.
true.
It was so good, and she was the only one who kind of had that thing. Obviously, they had to do the country robot for their
which I thought
challenge.
Would doom any pair, regardless of who it was given to.
I'm like country. That's not really a genre of dance.
It's a line dance.
Like. Country.
I mean, I understand that like a line dance and the robot are both very stiff and have very measured steps and blah blah blah, but I did not see the correlation as well. Like I'll give you Charleston twerking, but but Vogue Tango made the most sense. Maybe we should backtrack a little bit as to who got paired with what, because Violet was deemed the winner of the mini challenge, so she could pair everyone, including herself.
She did the most with that Scotch tape.
She was hilarious.
She
that
created
pink
a
snout
real
was
look.
So funny.
It was like you almost didn't even see the tape. It just looked like she had surgery to make herself look that ridiculous and was so convinced that she was beautiful in that form. It really, really worked. So
but again, Violet was spot on in her shadiness when she said that Kennedy's just going to look like herself. And
which she did. She was like, are you even wearing any tape? Which she really wasn't.
Was she? Okay. I couldn't tell. I'm like.
Not much.
She's not wearing any tape, really.
It didn't make her eyes any less crossed.
Oh, Lord of mercy. But I got to give it up to Kennedy, though. Like, this week went a long way to make me a fan of Kennedy, so.
I liked her a lot more this week, too. Like, I think it was just like that complete open honesty where she was just like, no, Pearl, you were the hottest. I was, like, so happy to be, like, right behind you when you were twerking into my girl. It was just, like, she was really speaking for a lot of people in that moment.
But I also felt like there was a small moment where she didn't chime in being a bitter Betty with Ginger and kind of, like, just looked at Ginger like, oh, come on. And I feel like she's starting to, like, now that there are less younger queens and maybe she feels like they've proved themselves. I mean, she actually paid Violet a compliment this week in Untucked, so I feel like that was a huge first, too.
That was, because she's
and I just
not
feel
a
like
fan
she was
of
being
Violet.
super, like, open and not kind of being that flase
da. Pearl's made up word. I couldn't even
remember. Are you trying
to
say laissez-faire?
I think they're trying to say, like, blase, but, like...
Oh, it was just...
Who
decoded it? Was it Rachel Harris that ended up decoding it, or was it Alyssa Milano, the other guest judge?
I think it was
one
Alyssa.
Of the guest judges, like, kind of decoded it, and they're putting a spin on it.
Yes, it was hilarious.
So
Blase
funny.
da.
Oh my god.
Is that the new word for Ambien?
But anyway, back to... Sorry, we keep going.
So, yes, because it's so much to talk about. But yes, Violet won the mini challenge and got to pair up.
Pearl and Katya's housewife little tagline were also hilarious. Pearl's got me the most because I thought the look matched the tagline. People think I'm a
slut, but I'm also an alcoholic.
She really does have the housewife on pills thing down. It's so funny.
It really worked for me. I was like, she could have won that challenge.
For me, it was a toss up between her and Violet. When life gets hard, I just spray through my nose. That was Violet's tagline, which also killed me.
So she paired herself up with Katya,
which I thought was very smart.
Very smart.
I feel like she definitely saw the John Waters Divine performance from last week and was like, yup, I need you to help me. And which I thought was the greatest thing about that pairing is that they both have and ironically, Violet brings this up later in Untucked, but they both have something the other one doesn't have, and I think together they make a really great pair. So when they got together, I was like, oh, why the hell didn't you guys get paired up together before?
Like, it seemed worrying at the beginning because just like, tango, that's like Spanish, right? I'm like, oh, no.
Well, you know.
But I guess I see where you're
not
going
a lot
with
of tango in Atlanta.
No.
I'm going to go out on that super long limb and assume it.
Hey, you never know.
You never know. I'm not trying to say anything disparaging about Hot Atlanta.
Nobody says that, but yes. I'll never forget that. But
I'm complimenting you now. I'm doing this new thing where I tell everybody.
She just gets better and better as the show goes along. And they also have similar body types too, which I think really helped them pair up.
Tall, gangly.
And it was like we said in the written review, and like you just said earlier in the podcast, how like of all the mashup, the dance mashups, because we had Country Robot, and that Trixie and Ginger were paired up by Pearl, and that's the mashup dance that they got. And Pearl and Kennedy, which was like, Pearl and Kennedy was such a weird pairing.
I was like, what the fuck is happening right now? Are we watching the right show?
Country Robot, Pearl, Kennedy, Charleston Twerk, which had a nice ring to it, and also but oh my god, Pearl cannot twerk. Pearl cannot dance.
Oh god, yeah, no, not at all.
It was so bizarre.
But she gave it her fucking college effort. Like
she gave it the old college try.
I thought she actually really committed to it, and that's all that really matters, honestly, when you're dancing.
It does, because you can feel that, even though you can see that there's not a great deal of precision or flawless execution in the way she's dancing, but the attitude and the spirit were actually there. Although I will agree with Carson that Kennedy did still seem not terribly high energy. She kind of had like this, like, I got this. I don't have to try that hard.
Well, I mean, she comes into rehearsal, and the first thing one of the dance instructors says, like, can either of you do the splits or do this or that? And Kennedy does like a backflip into a split. And like does it just like that, like she wakes up like that or some shit. Like, it was like some Beyonce level shit where you're like, what the fuck?
Like, she got skills. She was not lying about it.
She really isn't, and she really is confident in her skill. And maybe that confidence, maybe because she's not so overtly cocky and does adhere to the motto, women should be, or ladies should be seen and not heard, that it kind of comes off as flazé-da, and so it just maybe can be misinterpreted in other ways. But she's been given that critique before. I mean, I don't know. I have nothing to really say other than I didn't really mind it this time.
I didn't. For some reason, I didn't. I could see what Carson was talking about.
Because I felt like the twerking was the part where she actually seemed the most energetic. At least to me. And that's maybe her, like, I wouldn't say comfort zone, but that's like maybe the part where she felt like, oh, I got this, but I can also sell it a little bit more because Pearl's not gonna do it. But maybe the Charleston was a little bit more like 1, 2, 3, 4 in her head, and like didn't quite have the steps because God knows like how little time, like 20 minutes to learn a fucking 5-minute dance routine. So I felt like maybe the Charleston, she was a little bit more stiff, but I was like, whatever. They still looked to be having a good time, and they both had a good chemistry, I thought. So the whole thing worked for me.
Yeah.
But whereas Trixie and Pearl, I felt
it was still entertaining.
I actually felt like they had like an adversary outlook on each other, like they were in it against each other and not together. If that makes sense. Like, and I felt like when as soon as Trixie started complaining about how Ginger can't sew, Ginger can't dance, Ginger is defeatist, whatever, I felt like when they went into the challenge, Trixie already had the sign, like, I have to, like, lift you up. She'd already absorbed
that she'd already taken it in. Like, you could sort of tell even in the workroom when Ru was talking to them that there was just not, like, there was not a chemistry between them.
Not like when we saw them last week.
No, like, that was, like...
And that was kind of, like, the thing that stuck out to me first. I was like, oh, fuck, this is gonna go so bad. Really, really bad.
Like, this is not the simple little dance bits that they were doing in Glamazonian Airways. Well, I mean, it wasn't simple, but it was easier for her to execute because there was less actual dancing. There was only a little bit here and there mixed in with actual performance and acting, and this time it was like, no, you really have to dance. And it terrified her, and it read on her face, and I really think she dragged Trixie down with her. But ironically, Trixie's dancing was actually, like I said, it was good. It was good, and her, like, the look was good. It was, I don't know, it was just an unfortunate series of circumstances that we could kind of see written on the wall from the beginning. Like, we're like, okay, this is what's going to happen. I can already see this happening. And like I said, like, of all those dance mashups, the one that was clearly, like, designed for success was the Vogue Tango. Because really, like, both of them made a good male counterpart to the female, like, fishiness, basically, because, like, the dance itself, like a tango, obviously it's a romantic dance, it's a passion dance, you have to look each other in the eye. When you're doing it, you can't be flazé-da with the tango, or with the Vogue, really. And I really felt like that was the most interesting one to watch because with the tango, it's very clear, like, the male is the one who's in control and the female is the one who's being led, but also seems to provide a great deal more of the dancing in the couple, even though the male's clearly in charge. But you're constantly seeing them switch over from male to female as they turn this way and turn that way. And the dance style itself lends itself to like playing off of that symmetry between the male and the female in the look that they had to. I'm like right here. Like, I don't know how much closer I can get to this microphone.
Turning of the face. I lost the end of what you were saying.
But really, that dichotomy between male and female that was incorporated into the look worked best in that dance because you're really showing half of yourself at the same time. When you pair yourself together to head towards a camera, for instance, like your faces are really coming together to create a different kind of illusion. To me, it was the most fascinating one because now the female's leading, the male's leading.
It showed off the look the best, whereas I felt like some people you had to see them straight on in order to really kind of get it.
Mm-hmm.
Where once I did, like, I thought Ginger's look was really kind of weak in that sense.
It really was. She had sort of like an old saloon showgirl like outfit on one side that really was kind of dull, and it was green. Again, Michelle's least favorite color, which she didn't mention this time around. But it was like this weird, ugly
I don't know. Maybe it was a muted enough green. It was that muted didn't matter,
green
but
and gold. But it was
I don't know.
not
Either
attractive.
way, it didn't pop. It looked like she was gonna lip sync that week. Like that's what I thought.
It really did.
By comparison, Trixie's outfit was very cute, and she did a really great job, and I thought it was very well thought out. But I thought the makeup was really harsh when you looked at her straight on. Like, the line was very severe. Whereas I thought that Violet and Katya did a really good job of blending it so that there was a smoother transition over.
Well, I felt like the point was for it to be like a drastic difference, so that like one side there's a full illusion of maleness.
Maybe it was just the lines
side...
didn't. Maybe it was that the lines didn't line up or something. It just didn't look right. Some of the makeups I didn't think looked as sharp.
I mean, obviously Katya and Violet had the best looks on the runway, combined with the best dance performance. So it was.
And I liked Violet's mustache. I thought that was a clever.
Yes,
a clever way to really make
mustache.
It, but also worked into the tango as like the kind of.
It did. So it was like she really. Oh, okay. Okay, sorry.
No, I know. I thought it was like something was rattling.
I'm like, okay, we were speaking of ghosts earlier. Now I feel like something's scratching at your door. This is seriously wrong. But nonetheless.
But we forget there's a small dog here.
There's a small dog right there. But like she thought of everything, and it was so flawlessly executed. Like they even said, like, even when they were in the tango, when she was playing the female side of the tango, the real like fully stretched out leg, to really. Get down into those positions and really sell that passion of the tango. They sold it, and it was flawlessly executed. Obviously, in the rehearsal, Katya was like terrified because Violet was doing the Vogue, and she's like,
Well, they gave him 7 different tiny micro movements to memorize.
But I noticed
in
rapid succession. Actual
dance, I knew that Violet was going to totally
Violet's
nail
doing the Vogue.
Violet lives to pose. It was going to be fine. It was
perfection, too.
Yeah, it was going to be fine.
I mean, she said, this is the first time she really mentioned in this episode, when they're like, oh, do you dance? She's like, oh, well, I do aerial work. I'm like, you need to look up her aerial work because it's amazing. And actually, it was funny because I watched one of those, World of Wonder, RuPaul's Drag Race, YouTube channel videos, and there's one...
Sorry, you say aerial work and then World of Wonder, I'm like, is this a show? But
yes,
no, continue.
In many ways. But Alyssa Edwards has, a little YouTube series on, that World of Wonder produces. Mm-hmm. And she mentioned before the season started, she's like, oh, Violet, I'm actually really impressed with Violet. She's a really great performer. You have to see her, her perform live, because she does, all these, aerial works with, and she knew what Violet could do. And Violet has not really even mentioned it at all this whole season. And that one moment, I was like, oh, finally she's sort of, mentioning other things that she does in terms of performance outside of the show. And from all accounts, it is stunning. She is actually amazing. And then, of course, Alyssa Edwards was the one who had the video.
The special message video.
And it was for Kennedy. And I was like, oh, we all know Kennedy's not going to win. If she does win, I'm going to be very, very confused. But
I'll be very surprised.
Very surprised if that happens.
Not a bad surprise, just literally the textbook definition of surprised.
But, like, Alyssa Edwards, that was Kennedy's message this week was from Alyssa.
Which I thought was funny, because Kennedy didn't say anything about Violet doing Alyssa during Snatch Game at all.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe that got edited for time. I mean, who knows? I had no idea there was a connection to any of this. And we watched the Untucked, so I don't remember Kennedy making any mention of being Violet and Alyssa
or that
Edwards.
They competed at like pageants.
Oh right,
together.
Yeah.
That Kennedy actually won the first one, then crowned Alyssa the next year.
I mean, that was a very sweet story, but I was like, oh,
okay. We did not do our research, Shady Lady.
I guess not, but like I said, Kennedy went a long way to make me really, really like her a lot more than I have at all, or thought I could. Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad she's opening up more.
I loved it when they were like, oh my goodness, that's a big tuck you have there. She's like, yeah, I'm all crunch and munch today. Like, oh, but yeah, like everybody had their earphones in. They're like, I gotta learn this song. They all thought they were going home. I'm like, really, Katya?
Except for Trixie.
So strange.
Killing me. It was killing me.
I'm just like, oh my God.
I just felt like Whoopi and Ghost. I was like, you in danger, girl.
Molly, you in danger, girl. I am so thrilled, though, that next week the puppets are back. Everybody loves puppets.
Who doesn't?
I am excited for that. I can't remember who they said who we saw in the trailer for the next week was doing. We didn't really get a beat on who gets what puppet or who gets what character to play.
And if anybody was going to figure it out, I know it's going to be you.
And again, something that Trixie would have been really good at.
How does that always...
Right after she's gone. It's just like Top Model.
Oh my
Top
God,
Model
it's
happens
totally
all the
true.
time. Like the person who went home like 2 weeks later, you're like, oh, well, there's the challenge that was clearly designed exactly for that person. When I heard this week was a dance challenge, I'm like, oh, well, Kennedy's got to win this one. I was surprised that she didn't because that's like her thing. And when they asked her, she's like, oh, I don't really dance. But I'm like, wait, what? Isn't it like what you do? Maybe.
I thought that was part of her shtick.
But I guess she meant like she's like not like a trained dancer.
And yeah, well, she's not like, busting out point shoes or anything.
Yeah, I loved that moment in Untucked where it was like, because you really felt like a real pang of sadness in Trixie when she went home this time, and she's like, I didn't even get to tap dance. Like and then she busted. It's like they actually featured that one. It was a really beautiful little moment. Actually, I thought they like basically gave her that moment. It's like, okay, well, why don't you just give us a little tap dance right now? Put on the shoes. Give us a dance so she can at least say that she did it and we got to see it. There really was sort of like I almost like got a little misty because it was like, she really, I think it's something about being in the competition that really sort of created this filter on Trixie that like it was hard for her in this setting to really do what she can do. And there was so much more she wanted to show us that she had to show us, and they gave her that little moment just for us to see it. The Untucked I really loved it this season because there was even one really beautiful shot that really took advantage of this like man-woman drag look they had to do for the runway where like
where
Katya was
sitting for the lip sync and you can see both sides.
That
was
like
really
the male
cool.
face and then the female face like it was
great.
Highlighted the brilliance of that idea. Like in one shot.
But it was also nice to be able to get more angles on their looks, so to speak. And actually spend some more time with it. Because sometimes, they put real effort into these looks. They sew their stuff together. They put real thought and time into crafting their makeup and have a backstory for it.
And you have to think like nobody else ever has to think about things to do this well.
So it's nice to... that's what I like the most about Untucked, is spending more time and seeing them in costume. And also, getting kind of another flip side of their personality a little bit. You can tell who's over filming sometimes and who isn't.
Yes, definitely. Oh my goodness. So Trixie's gone.
Gone, but won't be forgotten. I think, like you already said, there wasn't necessarily the right challenge to showcase her talents, or maybe it just put a wall up between her and what she wanted to really bring. But, girl, I don't really know if you would ever be able to tap dance on this show. I can't think of a time when that might be appropriate. Maybe if you like plan for a lip sync for your life, but then again, I don't really even know if that would work.
Yeah.
So perhaps your talents, you are obviously talented, but perhaps your talents aren't suited best for the show. So good thing she lasted one past her comeback episode, because I mean, that's always humiliating to go home like immediately when you come back.
Yeah, it really is.
But I can't imagine that it's fun to pack up your belongings twice. She seemed to have like double the amount of shit she left with the first fucking time.
And she still had that tennis racket that she used in like, the first challenge. I'm like, why is that still there?
That poor PA carrying it just made me giggle. And I know, again, unintentional humor was not a moment to be laughing, but...
I know, because it was heartbreaking.
It was very sad. You could really feel that she was very let down and very much blamed Ginger in that moment.
She did. She still does.
I was about to say, probably continues to do so.
Which, I mean, you can't blame her. Really, it kind of... I mean, it's unfortunate because I still love Ginger. I still think she's great, and I still think she's going to definitely be in the top 3, and I think she deserves to be there without a doubt. Like, there's no questioning that.
I agree with everything you just said.
But I really felt like it was more her fault. Like, she really did. She kind of tanked that dance challenge. Her runway look was really not on point. And really, it took her into the place where she could succeed, and we knew that, like, she was going to come out on top. So it's kind of like another, like, oh, well, no matter how I do in the challenge, if I get a lip sync, I'm going to win the lip sync, so I know I can stay. It was kind of like when Alyssa Edwards was like, if I have to lip sync my way to the top, I will. But you really shouldn't have to do that to get to the top.
Right.
And I don't think Ginger really has to. It's really like everyone was saying. It's just a case of her psyching herself out, and she needs to not do that.
But it's also gotten to the point where there's so few of them left that
the smallest mistake is magnified, because at this point we really narrowed it down to who's really good in a lot of areas.
And I think Trixie even said it best in Untucked, is the judges really like all of them. So it's going to be really tough and tougher from here on out for them to kind of dissect and give maybe like the best reasoning for why they're up for elimination. Because even some of the reasons that Rue was giving while she was calling everybody out, I was like, that sounds weak. Like,
you had to like come up with something.
You came up with something.
Or maybe, it's a case where like really is when you like, because they're more intimate in that situation with these queens than we are. Because we're seeing it on TV, we're seeing it edited. They see a lot more and hear a lot more there in that moment. So it probably feels like so much different in that moment. It's kind of like when you really know someone really well, like you can always tell if I'm not feeling well. Just from how I look when I walk in the door. Because you've seen me so many times that you know a difference when there's a difference. You can see that difference. So they're probably at that level with these people where they're so attuned to everything about them that they can pick up on when something's off. So that sort of like if you were a casual fan of a sport or you're a devoted fan of a sport. Like, or like a dance, or if you're like a musician, like when you go to the symphony, you can hear when the musician made a mistake, but someone who hasn't played an instrument or been to the symphony that often is not be like, oh, well, that sounded great to me. Or kind of like when you go to a friend's show and you're like, oh, you were so good, and they're like, oh, I totally missed this bar, and I totally fucked this thing up, and well, they know it better because they played it so many times, so they know where the mistake is, and we're just hearing a great performance. Mm-hmm. So it's that kind of thing, I think, happening there, so they can really tell, like, oh, that's a mistake. I always, figure skating's my obviously go-to reference, because if you don't know figure skating, you don't know when those ice dancers fucked up a step. But I can see it all.
This is true. If you ever want to watch figure skating, just watch it with Samir. You'll learn a lot.
Seriously, oh my god.
And laugh a lot.
Man, when next figure skating season comes, I really need to have a podcast just about reviewing all the competitions.
I'll leave you alone on that one.
Oh, come on. I need a color commentator.
Ooh! Yeah, I can do that.
I need someone to be like that.
You can talk the technical. And we definitely will have like a America's funniest homes figure skating falling reel or whatever every week. Yes. Because that's just our favorite part. That never stops.
The more painful, the better.
Oh, Lord. What was the best one that we saw? There was just one that got me.
Like whenever they land on their hip.
That Ashley chick, didn't she like face plant or something?
It's worth even more when they really want it.
Oh God, when they cry, it makes it even better. But anyway,
but nonetheless,
this time we cried for Trixie because she really did want it. But
and you're still gonna
such is the reality show game.
your profile in the drag community is probably much bigger now than it was before the show. I think a lot more people are going to want to see you perform now. And I hope to see you doing that a lot more because we'll pay money to see you. Gladly. I mean, I may not go to Jersey for it, but...
Oh, Lord, no one should go to Jersey.
Well, isn't that just where New York goes to smoke?
Probably. I guess that's true.
It was in a Simpsons episode.
A recent one?
No, it was an old one.
Okay.
When they were still funny.
And on that burn...
And I still love you, Simpsons. Just get back to where you were. But Drag Race doesn't need to because it's still freaking hilarious. Even when it disappoints me with an elimination that I don't totally want to live with.
Or feels a little master of puppeteered.
And I guess it's a perfect lead into the puppet mini challenge next week. Well, I'm still going to be there bright and early.
Or
late. I get the East Coast feed, so I get to watch it before the West Coast does. So by the time the West Coast is getting around to it, I've already seen it. Of course, we could be like all the other legitimate critics who've seen all these episodes before Monday even comes around.
Not fair.
Well, I like having Monday RuPaul-a-days, and they will stay that way forever.
Well, or at least until next week.
And then we'll be back too.
So until then...
Throwing dust and shade all over the place.
I wonder if Pearl's learned to twerk in this time.
I highly doubt it.
Well, until next week, Squirrel Friends, you can find us at gambitmagazine.com.
You can find us on YouTube through our Gambit Digital YouTube page, where you can also listen to all of our podcasts. Or, of course, you can just subscribe to us on iTunes. It's free.
We're on iTunes.
Available on iTunes. You can go find us there. You can find, obviously, all our articles on the Gambit Magazine website. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter, which I am begrudgingly embracing more and more these days. So
it's because you've been sick and you've been home in bed, so you're
that's
just like,
true. I've had a lot of time to be like, what are people saying? I actually have time to scroll through 5,000 fucking tweets.
That's why
everyone's like, you need to follow more people. I'm like,
and then mute them immediately. Which
I was like, I can't follow that many people.
It becomes overwhelming.
But I'm also the kind of person who actually does have a big black heart, because as much as shriveled and blackened to the core as it may seem so much of the time, I actually want to read everyone's stuff, and I don't want to ignore things, and I want to favorite everyone's tweets. I'm just that nice. Really, really. I may be a shady bitch, but I'm a nice shady bitch. Or at least I try to be.
You sound like Violet trying to give a
follow
compliment.
Me on Instagram at Samiraculous. You can follow Margot at...
You can follow me at Mark She Wrote, and you can also follow the Gambit
The
Gambit Magazine Twitter as well for all and any reviews that you might miss, possibly in between all of the other social media shit we just dumped on you. So, until next week, bye.